Hey, the motor city's burning, y'all. That was a man, voice of a people.
Good morning, good morning. Good morning, good morning. Good morning, good morning. Good morning, good morning. And I'll begin. Good morning. This is the Motivator Show, usually alongside Lady Chelsea, but she's taken a PhD. I'm here for a while by myself, but if there are other young ladies who aspire to be a radio, what's the correct term? Pilot here on Galaxy Radio, and to join with me on the Motivator Show, please contact me. I look forward to talking to you. So this is the Motivator Show. I want to recognize, before I begin the show, Ghanaian King, who's taken us from night to day. Ghanaian King, praise be to you. Praise be to you. Stay strong and prosper and well to your family. I also want to recognize the Galaxy management, those stalwarts, those determined African peoples who ensured that this media platform is here for us 35 years ago, presently, and will be available to our children's children. I give praise and recognize Chief Bakombabai. I give praise and recognize Elder Erakute. I give praise and recognize Abu Ratata, the doctor, and of course his lady wife. I give praise and recognize the Nickel, the most royal, the longest serving pilot here on the station. I want to give a special praise and recognize to Empress Shanice, the solutions finder. I give praise and recognize to you, my Empress. I also, of course, want to recognize and acknowledge that this station has transmitted for more than 35 years. And of course, remember, it's not Africa's natural resources that is the source of its wealth. It's the technology that derives from those natural resources. So I recognize the engineers that this station has had over those past decades has ensured that this station can transmit live here today via galaxyafiwi.net. It can recognize, and we recognize we can transmit via YouTube under The Motivator Show, DE space Motivator Show. Similarly, on Facebook under The Motivator Show, and now Mixcloud under The Motivator Show. And if you are viewing us via YouTube or Facebook, feel free to give us a like, like this, I like this. Give us a like, or better still, subscribe. There is no cost. We take no personal details. You're simply notified in advance of the topic of the following week's show. It just gives us further recognition of the number of listeners who are not only liking the show, but want to be informed of future shows. So please give us a like and subscribe. No cost to you, simply a notification. These are important steps forward for us all. And as we found in more recent time, it's not until we as a people come together, discuss those issues that are a little thorny, a little taboo even, for no good reason invariably. It's not until we have the courage to discuss these subjects do we have the courage to effect change to better our circumstances. That's the purpose of these shows. The Motivator Show is intended to motivate, to translate your words into action. And I want you all to remember, and I will say it every week, success is ours for the taking. And if in doubt, ask questions. Please ask questions, Not to ask the questions leave you foolish, but to ask the question engenders courage and confidence. Ask questions if in doubt. Success is ours for the taking. Well, this week's show will be really interesting, okay? We'll have a special guest coming in, okay? But the focus of the show will show and demonstrate our ambitions, our aspirations, our vision for the future. Don't worry, I'll give you more about that later on. But before I go there, I want to start with those most crucial messages. And I'm encouraged by the feedback I've received during the week. These are, of course, the health messages. We must discuss our health more often. It is essential that we realize that our health is our true wealth. It's not cash, It's not the adoration that others might pour onto you, It's not the sports achievements, as it were, or even the intellectual achievements. It is our own health and well-being, which is the real wealth. Because with that, there is no potential that's beyond our scope. With that, you allow yourself happiness whilst not suffering from maladies. Contentment while not suffering from physical maladies. Love whilst not suffering from mental maladies or spiritual maladies. So these health messages are essential. It's quite obvious that it's slowly impacting upon even the most stubborn of ourselves, and including me amongst them, I have to say. It is essential. So I want to remind you, people, that it is essential for us to consider what we take into our bodies, okay? I want you to consider the following. How much sugar you ingest into your bodies. Consider the impact of sugar, not today or tomorrow or next week or next year or the following year, the cumulative impact sugar has on our bodies. Too much sugar damages our organ. The most important organ that process sugar is, of course, the pancreas. The filter our blood is the liver. Damage either one of those organs, and the typical condition that each of us know either within our families or friends network is what? Diabetes. Cited by the Vice Chancellor of the University of West Indies, Professor Hilary Beckles. He noted in a famous speech that there is an epidemic of diabetes of peoples in the Caribbean, most certainly in the Americas, and increasingly so here in Britain and Europe. Consuming far too much sugar is a big problem. So I say to people, please consider how much sugar you are ingesting. I also say to people, please also consider the impact once you've had diabetes it has on your family, your loved ones, your friends, not just yourself. Because diabetes can be a most debilitating condition to contract. I ask you to consider the amount of sugar you're ingesting, the addition to your teas and your coffees, those soft drinks, those sweet drinks, those sweet cakes. The cumulative impact, and its contribution to expanding your waistline, your size of your bottoms, and so on. Diabetes is a harmful disease to contract. And type 2 diabetes is fundamentally a lifestyle condition. I simply ask you to consider the amount of sugar you're ingesting. And if in doubt, please speak to your doctor, speak to the appropriate medical expert who can give you sound advice. Don't listen to rumors, or internet trolls. Speak to whoever has access to your medical records, would understand your vulnerabilities or your family vulnerabilities to this condition. Please consider how much sugar you are ingesting. I also please ask you to consider the amount of salt that you're ingesting. Salt is really prevalent in our diet in so many ways. Hardened arteries, raised blood pressure, or hypertension is the typical condition that is identified. Again, many of us know of someone in our families or our friends group who has hypertension. Just like diabetes, that's how prevalent it is in our communities. Again, primarily a lifestyle condition. It is avoidable, in other words. It is avoidable. I now have stopped buying salt. Those, salt containers. I no longer buy salt to add to my food. I no longer do that. I finally got to that stage. I no longer buy salt from the grocers. I'm not quite there on sugar, but I'm almost there. But salt, just like sugar, are killers, or they disable us in ways. Hypertension is a very serious condition. It's primarily caused by excessive amount of salt accumulated over time in our bodies. Equally, of course, I ask you to consider the amount of fat that you're ingesting, carbohydrates you're ingesting. Fat from meat is, you can grill your meat, you can see the fat just trickle off it, Just trickle off it, Consider the amount of fat, what it does to your bodies, How it contributes to expanding your waistline, expanding your bottom, as I said earlier on, In some people, some women, it looks kind of interesting, I have to admit. But we all recognize that actually it's harmful to your long-term health. That is not an image that we should applaud. It damages your long-term health. So I simply ask you, please, to consider the amount of fat you're ingesting in whatever form, and carbohydrates, usually from flour products, or these root vegetables, such as yams and potatoes, which we eat in significant amounts. Excessive amount of these foods contribute to our declining bodily functions. The amount of fat expands, accumulates around our organs, and put undue weight in our bodies. Reduce immunoresponse to all the maladies, the viruses and bacteria that surround us. Once you reduce your immunoresponse, you are vulnerable. I ask you, please, to consider the amount of salt, sugar, fats, carbohydrates that you're ingesting into your body. I wish to encourage you, if I can, to consume more fruits and vegetables. Yeah, a broad range of fruits and vegetables in far larger quantities than we are currently ingesting. It is quite clear that we should keep meat to the minimum, no more than 5, if you must, 10% of your diet. Possibly that the expert would tell us that's too much. That's why I'll have a nutritionist here soon enough. But clearly, not enough of us are hearing and responding to these messages. Particularly if you're parents of children, please ensure these messages are communicated to your children through your action. Don't need to instruct them, through your action, your examples. I applaud you, implore you to do this for your children and children's sake. And for yourselves, just to control these food products, okay, and they are food products, okay, in quantities that we currently experience in our cuisines are harming us in the long term. And why we've got to reform and change and modify our cuisines so that we taking far more fruits and vegetables ensures part of our natural behaviors to drink the appropriate amount of water. Ideally, I'm told between 2 to 3 liters. But if you're unsure, please go to your GP. Let the GP tell you. I can't tell you. But I know that you must drink more water. Yeah. So your body can release those toxins from itself and you can use it to build your body. Essential, absolutely essential. More fruits and vegetables, appropriate amounts of water each day. And of course, exercise is critical to your overall health and well-being. I ask you please to consider the amount of exercise you are engaging in each day. You know, no exercise means that you are setting yourself up for failure, for early death. Your bodies need exercise, and I want to remind those people who say, "Oh, but I work quite long hours." That's true, but work is work. Exercise is deliberate exercise of all your body, not some of your body, which is usually a part of the routine in work. Okay, but exercising, even going for a run, 10, 15-minute run would make all the difference. Or a 30-minute brisk walk would make all the difference. Yeah. It's essential to your general health and well-being. I implore you to do so. I implore you. I see far too many people in our community who are suffering from the conditions I've mentioned and do very little or no exercise, and then wonder why they are immunosuppressed and vulnerable to every virus, every bacterium, every condition known to us. And then wonder why their lives are diminishing because their bodies are diminishing. We can do better. We must do better for our sake, for our children's sake, for our loved ones' sake. It's essential. I implore you, those of you who are listening and you've got friends and families who you care for, share these messages with them. Please share these messages with them. And if I conclude by saying that having taken care of your physical being, it's important for you also to consider your mental and spiritual being as well. It is vital, therefore, that if in doubt, if you've got any concern about your mental state, please seek professional advice. Visit your GP, your doctor. Don't speak to any random third person. Seek professional advice. And so spiritual upliftment, which is an essential part of our general well-being. I say to you, meditate each day. Take away all the trials and tribulations, all the troubles you may be thinking about, and give yourself the space to be able just to settle, yeah, just to enjoy life. Feel your inner self rise. Yeah. Feel your inner self rise. Yeah. To be your true self for a few minutes. 10, 15, 20 minutes. You could do it 30 minutes a day. Just to meditate 30 minutes a day would be transformative. But I recommend that time to yourself. And lastly, as a previous guest has mentioned here on this radio station, it's equally important for us to consider your sexual health, your sexual status. If you've not been to a sexual health clinic or discussed your sexual health status or had yourself screened previously, go to your GP or go to a sexual health clinic. If you just start a relationship before you become intimate, please go to a sexual health clinic. Just be satisfied that you are, from a sexual health point of view, you do not have an STI. Don't presume you don't have it until a professional tells you you don't have an STI, a sexually transmitted infection. They're easily obtained. It is essential, I implore you to do so, because your partner, your future wife, your future husband, yeah, would appreciate it if you did so. And if you go for the screening together, go to your local sexual health clinic together, that is the right step to take. That is the right thing to do. That is the correct action, the responsible action. I know some people say, well, you shouldn't really discuss that on the radio at this time in the morning. It is absolutely essential that I discuss it, because far too many members of our community still have an STI, and too many go undiagnosed and spread the STI to other members of the community. It is our responsibility to take care of our physical, mental, and spiritual health. And most certainly, our sexual health is an integral part of all three. So if in doubt, please go to your GP. If in doubt, visit your local sexual health clinic. You can usually visit them and remain anonymous if you so wish. Okay? Or you could do it online. That may be an alternative for you. So sh24.gov.uk is the online opportunity. Okay. So I say to everybody, please, let's ensure that we are able to take care of ourselves through our actions. Let's ensure that we are able to take care of ourselves through our actions. We are responsible for ourselves. And indeed, our practices, we should communicate to our children, to our loved ones. And these are positive practices we must get into the habit of conducting. Anyway, that's enough from me on the important health messages that affect our community. I would be an irresponsible public official if I did not communicate these health messages to you. This is a few opportunities I have to communicate these opportunities to the communities. Okay? So each time I have the opportunity, I will take it, because these are persistent issues that affect the community, not just 1 year or 10 years or 20 years, but for decades. We can do better. We will do better. And remember, this is the Motivator Show, where we translate our words into action. And remember, success is ours for the taking. Huh? Success is ours for the taking. And long may it remain so. Okay, let me now move on. We move on to the next segment. And I must add, apologies. I just realised that those of you who listen to us via galaxyfreeweek.net, it appears that it's dropped out for a moment. I think I've corrected the problem now. You should all be hearing me. If you're not, please send a text and I'll pick up your messages. But thank you for those who sent the messages through. Thank you. I think I've resolved the problem. Anyway. So as I mentioned, today's show will be a significant show, another significant show, positive messages. But I want to give a big shout out to Natasha Ennin. Okay, Natasha Ennin, who we didn't discuss last week, I don't mind telling you, who aspires to become a councillor, an elected public official, as of, or following from May the 5th. But it's an expert working in the Citizens Advice Bureau, and she provided some really important advice how we can survive these soaring energy prices. Clearly, there are far too many members of our community who are now terrified to turn on the heat, turn on the lights, or even watch TV because of the electricity consumption. And there will be some who will fall into genuine crisis. And what I hope is that the show last week provides a basis upon which you're able to gain advice. So if in doubt, visit your local citizens advice shop. Usually found on the high street, but simply use a search engine and put citizens advice about energy. And your local providers, wherever you are in the country, should appear on your screen. But Natasha was able to talk about, particularly here in London and here in Southwark, and the outlets, local Citizens Advice Bureau, and the range of advice that they're able to offer. I want to thank Natasha for providing outstanding support to the community. And I know many have benefited from the advice provided and have visited the Citizens Advice Bureau as a result. But I've got to admit, I've been monitoring my electricity meter and gas meters, and I note the rate at which those meters are ticking away. And I've got a little, tremor as to what my next bill will be. Okay, so yes, I am worried. I am worried. And I share the worry with the rest of you. But I hope that Natasha's advice you found positive. And very soon, this particular show will have its own website, okay, where much of the advice given will be available online, and all the references that was provided by the guest, it will be also available online. So you're able to go to the website and you could see what is available to you, okay. But I think you would enjoy with me to thank Natasha providing what was outstanding advice. And again, Natasha, thank you. If you're listening, thank you very much for that really insightful interview. And long may your political career be long and prosperous for you, okay? I also want to take a quick moment, if you don't mind, to thank my two previous guests, the Windrush, determined Windrush campaigners, Jackie McKenzie, the human rights lawyer and Windrush campaigner, Anthony Brown, the founder of the Windrush Defenders Legal, CIC. Sorry. It is so essential that we give recognition to their determined effort, because it's quite clear with such people on our side, success is assured. I can only call upon people such as the Prime Minister Boris Johnson, the Home Secretary Priti Patel, to hear the voices of those who are Windrush survivors. Yeah, I wish you'd hear their voices. The vast majority of them arrived in this country as British subjects until that status was taken away from them, in my view, illegally, in the 1972 Act, implemented finally in 1973. Can you imagine being born as a British subject and you're able to enter this country fine, and then suddenly overnight to have those rights taken from you? And then you then find that if you want to rent, you want to get a new job and other government services, they're barred from you because you don't have status here. Can you imagine? Some people have been here all their lives, 50, 40, 50, 60, 70 years, to have that done to you. How barbaric, if I may say so. We all must support Jackie Mackenzie, Anthony Brown, in their efforts to call for a Windrush Act, to be an act of parliament that by rights, those of you who were born as British subjects or in countries who were members of the Commonwealth, and you arrived here before 1972-73, that your rights are enshrined in law, and there's no questions asked. That's only right, isn't it? If you were Canadian, Australian, or New Zealand, that would not be an issue, I'm sure. Prime Minister, Home Secretary. Why should it be different if you're Nigerian, Jamaican, or Trinidadian, or even Ghanaian? Now, that is the question. We need to put the great back into Britain. But at the moment, the great is not in Britain. What's Britain behaves in that manner. So those who've been loyal to Britain, have worked here to Britain, paid taxes in Britain, and helped build Britain to what it is today. It's only right, isn't it? Let's see how the Prime Minister responds. Let's see how the Home Secretary responds. Let's see how the current government responds to the call for a Windrush Act. And will the Home Secretary continue to revise the so-called compensation scheme? I wonder. Let's see what happens. Let's see what happens. So now, in order for both Jackie and Anthony to succeed, we must rally behind them. Okay? We must rally behind them. I implore you to put their names in the search engine and make contact with them. Again, much of this detail will be available on our website, but just put their names in the search engine. Jackie Mackenzie and Anthony Brown, founder of the Windrush Defenders Legal. I implore you to them. I implore you. Okay. So now, let me just move on. And this starts preparation for today's show. I've been queried on a number of occasions by locals who've asked the question, why do I have shows that really focus on Africa so often when I'm from the Caribbean? I know, it's a really good question, I know. I'm of African heritage. That heritage is in my genes. It's who I am. Unless I told you I'm from the Caribbean, you wouldn't have known I wasn't born on the continent of Africa. Africa is within me. That part of my family's history was disturbed, of course. I have an English name. Again, part of disruption, identity, culture. Yeah. It is absolutely essential that those of us from the diaspora, whether you've been in the Caribbean or the Americas or here in Europe, okay, who've yet to establish, reconnect with Africa. Okay. I've yet to relearn, remember the history of that magnificent continent, the origins, the foundations of humankind. It's only then we can be proud for. And increasingly, countries across the continent are opening up, encouraging diasporans to come back, to invest. To invest, to see it as being, those countries as being holiday destinations, to reconnect with your historic past. It is vital, absolutely vital, first stage of any reparation process, that one repairs oneself. So I make no apologies for particularly focusing on the continent of Africa, the many countries across the continent, peoples, the culture, the traditions, the religions, the belief systems that are the foundations of each of those peoples in those countries. Today, we'll focus on Ghana. That magnificent country of Ghana, and its history goes back not a few hundred years, but thousands of years. Okay. So what we want to do today is to give a focus on Ghana. And what I'm going to do is encourage particularly Ghanaians, but not necessarily Ghanaians, to call in eventually. Okay. The number I will give out to you now, I think it might be appropriate to give out the number now, but ideally I'd like you to call after I've been able to conduct the interview with my guest, is as follows: 0208 133 5616. Okay, that's the number I'll be using during the show. Okay, and when my guests arrive, it would be a real opportunity to speak directly to my guest. Oh, I believe I've got a call in already, but don't you worry. Okay. But why today am I focusing on Ghana? Now, within my own family, my parents named each of the sons after famous Africans. Okay. And one of those Africans that my parents felt it was important that my brothers be named after is, of course, Kwame Nkrumah. Okay. Why Kwame Nkrumah? Why Kwame Nkrumah? My father and my mother, of course, noticed his speeches. And Kwame Nkrumah's speeches really focused on the majesty of the country of Ghana. Okay. And my parents felt that it was important to inspire their children. They needed to have names that had meaning. And in Ghana, of course, all names have meanings. And when I speak to my guests, we'll discuss names and the meanings of the name. Okay. So in my case, I named my son, not Kwame, which is, I know Ghanaians would say, well, I know Saturday, I named my son Nkrumah. Okay. Why? I needed him to feel a sense of pride for that name and the historic significance of the figure Kwame Nkrumah. To encourage him to do the research and understand the life of that great man. Okay. And truly, it was inspiring for him throughout his life, my son's life, thus far. You know, not only did he control himself at school, control his emotions, focus on his intellect, you know. He excelled because he had a name that was meaningful. Mm-hmm. Gave him a sense of pride, confidence, determination. I know I'm talking about my son, but anyway, there you go. He excelled in school, and excelled in university, and continued to excel in his professional life. That is the power of names. My daughter, you know, one is after Sojourner Truth, another is the Queen of Sheba, Makeda. And so it goes on, the power of names. But very soon I'll speak with my guest and discuss the power of names, okay? And what I'm honored by is that we have with us today Ghanaian royalty. Why is royalty important to us, you may ask? Often, particularly we Africans in the West, as it were, you know, we're exposed to very wealthy European peoples. Yeah, English, Scotch, Welsh peoples, German, French, Portuguese, Spanish, Dutch, Belgium. But we're not exposed enough to very wealthy African peoples. Here in Britain, there's great reverence for the royalty, the royal family here in Britain. But we're taught very little about African royalty, which of course extends for a period far greater length of period than that founded here in Britain. But you wouldn't believe that just by the teaching and the propaganda you exposed here in Britain. So it's important today to focus on African royalty, and specifically royalty that emanates from the great land of Ghana, okay? And to better understand the country, not through the eyes of the Western media, the Western press, Western media, radios, okay, to which we have little or no control, but through our eyes, through our voices, through our actions. That is a much healthier way to receive what is actually happening in each of those countries. So today's program will be part 2 on our focus on Ghana. And I hope we have on the line, let's making sure, just test the technology, and you must forgive me, people, making sure I've got this right, make sure we've got the technology right. Her Royal Highness Queen Tsotsoo the First. Are you with us?
I am with you, and it is actually Tsotsoo Soyoo.
Oh, thank you. Thank you for pronouncing correctly. Thank you so much.
Good morning, Councillor Martin, and greetings to your listeners across Britain, and I'm sure across the world. I'm happy to be here this morning with you.
And thank you for joining us. Thank you for joining us, and I'll keep practicing. Okay, I'll keep practicing. I haven't been divorced for a few generations. I'll keep practicing. It's good. Practice makes perfect, and as we proceed along our interview on why I wish at some point to join the Ghanaian family, you know, in one guise or another, you know, to come back home. Thank you. Now, we have very little time, and I find these interviews just proceed so quickly, so I won't even go through my usual preamp, okay? I'll get right into it, if that's okay with you. That's okay with you.
Absolutely fine.
Okay, thank you. And there are a few questions, which are my questions are initially seeking just to better understand, because there are thousands of people who've been listening to this who really want to understand something of the Ghanaian royalty. Okay. And I would, if I may, just begin really basic. Your name, what does it mean? What does your name mean?
Okay. So to break it down, in British royal culture, you have princes and princesses, and then you have the queen, and you have the lords and ladies, etc., etc.
Yes.
Those are all titles. Often in my Ga culture or Gadangme culture, when you see Nana or Nene preceding anyone's name, it denotes royalty. However, as you know, in popular culture, everybody would put princess or prince next to their name. So sometimes you might find people calling Na this, that, Na that, not because they are royal, but because it's what we all do in recognition of our culture. But when you see a royal with Na attached to their name or preceding their name, it means it's a female ruler. Now, my name, Tsotsoo, I was actually named after someone who apparently passed over 100 years ago. A woman who led a section of my community to a particular part of the Greater Accra region. And legend has it, Tsotsoo Soyoo, legend has it that she was like a warrior woman. She led them through several challenges. And when they arrived at their destination, she disappeared. And the place where she disappeared, there's a shrine to her memory. And so Tsotsoo Soyoo is literally naming after the characteristic of this woman, this warrior queen. And Soyoo has become synonymous with a strong woman. So when they say Soyoo, literally it means Thursday woman, Thursday as in the day of the week, but I was not born on a Thursday. So, but Soyoo is synonymous with someone who's a strong character, a warrior-like figure. So Tsotsoo Soyoo, the first, normally in our tradition, when you're royal, you assume the name of, I should really be the second, because she was the first to assume the name. Okay. But it was thought no one has ever been given this name before in royal terms. And therefore, since I was the first, they were going to make me the first to assume that name. And that's why I'm the first, but really I should be the second.
Interesting. Well, so in other words, Ghanaians also break those rules. Because I named my son Nkrumah, and I've always been berated by others. Oh no, he should have been Kwame, and he actually born on a Saturday. But okay, so I'm in good company, in other words.
So in a nutshell, my name means a queen, warrior, strong woman, and the first to assume that title.
And if I may ask, I note in part of my research that the attachment of kingmaker is mentioned.
Well, the title Jase Manye, yes, kingmaker queen, is, in some respects, it's a preparatory title. I am a royal. I come from the royal lineage of my homeland. My father was meant to be a king, and he decided he did not want to assume the throne because he preferred medicine. And it was his first love. So I come from a strong royal lineage. And that lineage traces its roots back to the first ever king of Jamestown, which is Kojo. Now, even my surname, which has been anglicized, if I go into my civilian name, the Kojo happens to be my surname, which has been anglicized somewhat. So from the perspective of the Jase Manye, there are various reasons which I wouldn't care to go into, but for familial reasons, I was given that title and that throne in order to prepare me and to help me. And Jase means kingmaker queen, which also means that I have the authority to help elect or in essence remove any king.
I understand you. Thank you. And that was an interesting piece of research. It is truly stimulating. And each week I have to research each of my guests. It's usually a remarkably intellectually stimulating experience. Follow through with another question, because you've hinted on my next question. Because I've noticed that across the mother continent, there's tradition to maintain royal lineages. Now, is your royalty due to an election process, inheritance, or is it a selection process from elders or the spiritual one? Just so we better understand.
Okay, so mine is lineage, number one. The process by which, across Ghana, the process by which royalty is assumed is down to royal houses. So from the Gadangme tradition, there are usually 3 ruling houses in any particular jurisdiction. Before the white man came to Ghana, we had a decentralized form of governance. It was very effective. The rulers were very powerful people. But of course, just like in any government, you need prime ministers and you have councillors like yourself, etc., etc. So the decentralized form of governance in our jurisdiction meant there was the paramountcy in any kind of jurisdiction, and then you trail it down to the division and then the local and so on and so forth. And then you come right down to the local community chiefs, as we call them. Now, what happens in any particular jurisdiction is there are 3 ruling houses and they rotate. What that means is, excuse me, when it's time to appoint any ruler, be it a female or a male, the ruling houses, the ruling house whose turn it is, will select 3 people, or they'll propose 3 individuals. Now, the interesting thing about my culture is, before you're proposed, all you know is that you're part of royal lineage. You don't know that you're de facto going to be either a king or a queen. You don't know that, because there's always 3 people in the running. And even those 3 people, you don't know who they are. You just know you're a royal. And so you're allowed to go out there, live your life, do whatever it is. But throughout your life, there is a level of watching, you know, so you're being observed in everything you do. So for instance, if you as a royal end up with a criminal record, you're immediately discounted by the Jase, the kingmakers, as a potential. When it's time to propose 3 people, they look at the people who have as you know, throughout their life displayed certain characteristics. In this modern dispensation that we're in, education plays a huge role, but wisdom is paramount. I'm going to repeat that. Education plays a key role, but wisdom is paramount. Secondly, your courage in terms of how you've carried yourself throughout your life. The type of characteristics you imbibe, is this a courageous human being? Is this someone who's going to be able to represent the stool positively? Or is this someone who's going to bring controversy or problems to our community? And then there are practical things. So you cannot be, traditionally, you cannot be left-handed, for instance. You can't have tattoos on your body. Yes, you can't have tattoos on your body, and you cannot be lame, which means you cannot have any disability in terms of movement. And I will explain why. As awful as that sounds, one of the reasons you cannot be left-handed is in our culture. You're not allowed to give anything to anyone with your left hand. You're not allowed to eat with your left hand. And you're not allowed to point at people with your left hand. You can't shake hands with the left hand. In the olden days, little things like those, by pointing to someone, shaking hands, and etc. with the left, can cause a war.
Oh, wow.
And so to remove that, because when someone is left-handed, that is how God created them. They don't have any control over it. So it was thought, rather than try and force people into behaving in the unnatural way that to what God created them to be. Let's make this rule to excuse them from assuming. If you're lame and you go into battle, you will slow down the army, and you may be captured.
Yes.
And as the head, no one wants to capture you. If you have a tattoo, it marks you. You are a dartboard for the enemy.
Why?
So, because if they identify the individual with the tattoo of X, Y, and Z on their body as the leader, normally in battle, the leader is taken out first. So you become a dartboard. You become immediate target. So it's not negative. It's just something very practical. If you're not marked by a tattoo, you can blend in all forms of disguise. And when captured, they cannot even identify you as the leader. So you may be able to get away with your life. And these are the practical reasons why these rules were made. So yes, we are selected. And once the family nominates 3 people, they then decide out of those 3 who's most suitable based on these characteristics. And once they make the decision, you find out you've been selected at the point when you're effectively captured. And by captured, you're taken by surprise and the rites performed immediately, etc., for you.
Just to be clear, who makes the selection? Is it the other family?
We have kingmakers from all the traditional ruling houses. They come together and they make that decision.
Wow, very orderly. And these traditions go back not a few hundred years, I understand a few thousand years. Absolutely. We have a very rich lineage heritage, thousands and thousands of years where these traditions have been. I mean, as we have traveled along, it's been dynamic. In the Ga tradition, initially, or the Gadangme tradition, we were led by priest and priestess kings. So we were very spiritual, and we never had the type of kingship and queenship tradition that you see today. Some of that we have assumed as a matter of union with other tribes in conformity. But for the Gadangme tradition, we are a very spiritually led tradition. So when you cast your mind, let me use the Bible as an example. They had the Levite priests that led them, in Israel. We were very similar. So our priests, we call them Wulome. They were our king and queen leaders until we became traditional rulers in the sense that you see today. Thank you. Thank you for that clarity. Thank you for that clarity. And you're helping us a great deal to reconnect, I have to say. So what role do you play in Ghanaian society today? What's your role at the moment? Personally or Queens in general? Well, that's a good question. No, that's a good point. I'll let you choose. Okay, I'll say personally, quite a lot. Currently speaking, I'm the first president of the National Congress of Ghanaian Unions, first female, sorry. Not the first female president of the Congress of Ghanaian Unions. I'm a vice chairperson of the Traditional Rulers Council in this country, representing my culture. I also happen to teach. I'm very, very involved in not only the Ghanaian community, but the African community. So I do a lot of speaking engagement, teaching about my culture, helping to identify and bring dignity and understanding to the role of traditional king and queenship across Africa. I also am very involved in a lot of charitable causes. I'm also president of the Gadangme Homecoming, with emphasis on homecoming. Last year, 2021, for example, we gathered across the globe everyone who identified as Gadangme living in the diaspora, and we brought them home. And if you go on YouTube and you type in Gadangme Homecoming, you'll see some of the activities, the derba, everything that went into and I had a very dynamic team working with, and we brought people home.
The reason we did that was to help harness, our theme was harnessing our resources for sustainable development, to help harness the mental, the physical, and the financial resources, the educational resources, and bringing it back to rebuild this homeland we call Gadangme. And so those are some of the things that personally I'm involved in. I'm matron of the Global Visionary Women's Network as well. And so I play a role in terms, I believe that the tradition of queenship follows you wherever you go. And therefore you must make an impact by your courage and the things that you do. And that's what has been my mantra along the way. Us, in general, what we in Ghana, we're referred to as queen mothers because we're queens and mothers of the nation, not because we're parents of kings, which confuses people somewhat. We're queens, but we're also mothers. And so what we do generally, one of our main roles is empowering the female child, anything to do with the female child. But also we are the ones in the background. When you have a mother, often when you err and daddy wants to slap 10 hells out of you, is the mother who steps in and says, oh, please, 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 please forgive him. I will talk to him. And mother draws you aside and says, what on earth is wrong with you? You know, and so on and so forth, and advises you. That's our role. So we speak to, when we see the king is about to take a decision that may not be the best, we are the ones in the background saying, my king, please reconsider. Let's look at this properly. It's our role. In Ghana, we have a patriarchal culture, as you know, and therefore the king is considered the leader, the male. But I always say it's the women who are usually leading.
Oh yes, I know.
We place the kings are in front, they're dynamic and they're seen to be leading, but we're the ones in the background, you know, helping move helping the king take his steps. So that's generally speaking what we do as queen mothers.
I completely understand. I completely understand. I have this year focused very much on women's contribution to our community's development. And it is, be assured that the women I've had on my show since the turn of this year have been equally as dynamic as yourself. I hope you don't mind me saying this. Equally as dynamic, and they all speak with a similar tone, desire for community empowerment and improvement. And it is essential if we are to have a better place for our children's children, and that's clearly centre to your royalty. And I want to quote what you've said and affirmed is the theme of your royalty: courage, integrity, authenticity, humility, and wisdom. I read those words. Oh, I read those words for the first time a few weeks ago. I was humbled by you. I was humbled by
Indeed. The Latin have a saying, and the phrase says, why has this suddenly gone out of my head for some bizarre reason? But what it translates to is not for ourselves alone. And for somebody, it'll come to me in a minute, it's really crazy. For someone placed in a position, you always have to balance the fact that everything you do is, you know, a big picture thinking. And therefore you have to be aware of the impact on everyone else and also how you bring everyone else along. Sometimes personally, it comes at a huge cost in terms of your personal life, for instance, and then other factors. But this is precisely why you're placed in a certain role, so that you can bring people along and not be tethered by this idea that is, you know, each for himself and God for us all. each for all and all for God.
Yep, you're so right. And I can only hope that there are many listening and belong to organizations which are going through fractious times. Okay.
Yes.
And what you're reminding us is that the role that women play to moderate those factions is essential. But your themes are essential if we are together to better understand each other.
Mm-hmm.
But I would have said, as you know, I'm a counsellor, these words, the words you just uttered are the words I would have uttered when I was elected in 2006. Why I was so humbled that these are your words, these are your words. And audience, you're hearing it for the very first time live on the Motivator Show. If I may just move now, I want to encourage people to see Ghana of a genuine place of interest. So if I may ask this question, why should my many listeners see Ghana as a secure place to invest? And broadly, what are currently the attractive areas for overseas investors to consider the investing? Is it tourism? Is it construction of schools and other types of buildings? Is it the development of those fundamental services such as water, electricity, gas supply? Where would you encourage those of us who are thinking about Ghana as a place to invest? Where should we invest if we were to do so?
I can tell you the places where we're asking for investors to come to Ghana for, but I want to focus on places where I consider there to be a real need.
Okay. Yeah.
And so you look at sections like mining, industry, etc. But for me, if I look at it from a ruler's perspective, education is one. And when I say education, it's not because Ghana hasn't got a robust education culture. We do. But I believe that we need to enrich the way we see education. Now, hitherto, our educational system has been based on a very British culture. In fact, so is our political system. We have a parliamentary system because, of course, we were at some point under British rule. And so education, in the way we see the world, in the way we apply our culture to how the world works in finance, in science, even in geography. When I was in school as a young girl, I was in primary school in Ghana. Interestingly, my mother was a teacher at the time also. Now, I was taught about the makeup of snow. Now, I live in Africa. And because it was a very British education system, I had to learn the makeup of snow. I didn't understand what the thing meant until I saw snow for the first time. And so we need to be able to structure our educational system so that we emulate what is happening in places like China, Japan, etc., where they have taken their culture and translated it into a global concept or a global system, where the kids understand science from the perspective of the Chinese, from the perspective of the Japanese, using their language, utilizing that. So bringing that rich sense of education in. Also the wealth of, mental resource that the diaspora can bring. That's number one. I also think that waste management, how we manage waste, is very important, because obviously land mass is a problem. Economics plays a role in waste management. And if we can harness what we consider to be waste into energy production, we have the sun aplenty. So we're talking solar and so on and so forth. It will come back to energy investment as well. So the two go hand in hand. Utilizing the natural resources are easily and readily available to produce energy, but in the same way managing our waste system. So waste to energy management for me is key. And then energy itself, bringing that wealth of investment in to harness what we have in Africa as a whole, but in Ghana, to create the kind of energy. So we're not so dependent on fossil energy. We've seen what is happening in Russia at the moment and the impact it's having globally. So we can be less reliant on what the West and more self-reliant by utilizing our resources. And it's a very Nkrumahist agenda, but going back and revisiting that. So we've talked about energy, waste management, and education. And then we need to look at the way we utilize our real estate. Now, we in Africa are very much landowner orientated, okay? But land is a finite resource. And the way we are utilizing our land is not sustainable. So we need to be thinking futuristically, how are we going to utilize what is there as our land so that at some point we can have a thriving society where the land is not necessarily everybody having a little bit of land for themselves per se, but we're using it in the way we can commercialize and sustain it. So look at what is happening in the West with social housing, for instance. What about those who cannot afford to buy land and build on it? Can we create a culture where we have a very good quality social housing system? So for me, that's another part of investment that you can come and be attracted to and make. And then of course the financial, we're looking at things like the mining sector. Currently, we have a major problem with illegal mining, and I won't begin to name names about the communities that are exploiting our resources the most in the most negative, inhumane way, which is affecting communities. For instance, there are vast communities whose water bodies have been completely destroyed by illegal mining. Unscrupulous behavior of people who are welcomed into our society and they take advantage of our hospitality. And of course, I cannot speak here and not assume a level of responsibility. Some of our leadership doesn't help. But how can we turn that around into a positive thing? So when you're coming into the mining sector, you want to be thinking holistically. How can I protect the indigents in the communities where I'm coming to invest, and at the same time get a good return on investment? And then agriculture. One of the biggest things for me is agriculture, because we must eat.
Yes.
How do we have a sustainable agricultural system where farmers are earning good income from their produce? Produce is not going to waste. What systems and structures are we going to build in order that we can preserve some of that produce and turn it into other produce? So fruit turning into fruit juice for the local community, quality products, jam, marmalade, all these kind of things that in West we've come to embrace as part of Western culture. But how can we produce these? Fish, how can we go back to Nkrumah's era where we had fish canneries?
Yes.
You know, things like tiger nuts. You go to Whole Foods and tiger nuts are expensive. Shea butter, we have it in abundance. How do we harness these things and produce them in a way that is attractive on a global market, but also used by the people within Ghana? And the marketing that goes into telling Ghanaians that actually your produce is more holistic, more organic than the GMO produced products that you import into the country. So it's little things like that which had attendant industry. So if you're going to produce food, then we are thinking about cooking pots, for instance. That can be someone's industry. Stoves, what kind of stoves? Solar powered stoves, that can be someone's industry. You know, a vast opportunity for investment in Ghana exists, and we want people to think strategically rather than how can I go in, destroy as much as I can because I want to make quick money.
Mhm.
Therefore, I don't care how I make it. The opportunity is there. I won't think about the people. So there you are.
Thank you. Thank you. That's an interesting list. And I noticed didn't mention technology.
Sorry. And that's but yes, absolutely. Technology, IT is a big thing now, but technology is going to be everything I've mentioned.
Mhm.
Technology is going to fuel from education to mining to everything, agriculture, etc.
Mhm.
Technology is one of the biggest things. So yes, investment in the technology, which is where the strategic thinking comes in.
Yeah.
You know, Nkrumah came and built the Akosombo Dam, and it's still the main dam that provides electricity in Ghana. We need more dams. We need the infrastructure. And I will tell you something.
Mhm.
Across Ghana, and you only have to do a search, you find ingenious young people, sometimes with little or no education, inventing stuff that will blow your mind. Recently, Ghana's University of Science and Technology, the females came first in a West African competition on technology. It tells you something. So investing in the technology, bring their brains back. We want to see the MITs, the people with the advanced technological mindsets and skills come back and help us utilize what we have. What we have are plenty. Harness the energy of the sea, for instance.
Right.
You know, the rivers we have.
Mhm.
Harness the energy of the forest, not felling trees for timber necessarily, but you know, how do we protect what we have and use it to advance technology? So you're right. Sorry, I forgot that.
No. It's just interesting, and you are right that I've observed African children here in this country in schools where the overwhelming majority, and invariably, given the right stimulus, in other words, equal stimulus to any other child in the country, it is no doubt that African children, whether from the continent or indeed from the Caribbean, perform above the national average when given all the same resources as any other person.
Absolutely.
And it's always it's a common theme. So the only way to hold them back is to deny them the resources, deny them the opportunities. That's the way to hold them back. Actually, hold back Britain, but it is an interesting observation, and you're right. There are many geniuses in the African population. Statistically speaking, there are more geniuses amongst the African population than any other population across the world. And that's a fascinating stat to behold. Really, it's a fascinating stat to behold. Can I just take you on? Because you talk about it, the investment, and I understand that. Getting a passport, how do you access the country? Because I've heard stories that it's sometimes really challenging to get into the country. Is that true, or would you say that we just have to be patient?
When you say getting into the country, do you mean assuming a Ghanaian nationality in order to get passport, or traveling to Ghana?
To the country, and indeed getting Ghanaian passport eventually.
Okay, so the challenges of getting into the country, I think there are several reasons for why that perception exists.
Mm-hmm.
Often when we talk about going back to Africa, there is this assumption that we should circumvent the bureaucratic system by virtue of all of us being African and going back home. And I think over the course of the years, we've all established that there has to be a level of bureaucracy in order to keep order. And so people get very frustrated when they feel like, well, if I want to go and take my brains and my investment into Africa, why can't he just bypass all this bureaucracy and allow me to just go and give me a passport and let me go? Of course, that will be chaotic. We live in a world where there are issues across the world in terms of security and all manner of things. Therefore, every government has to be mindful of that.
Of course.
So when you go into the embassies and they say to you, well, it's going to take X number of days, we need to have this, we need to have these checks and balances in order to, one, admit you into the country. Please be patient with us. Africa and Ghana, I'll tell you straight away, I get frustrated by sometimes the slow pace of stuff The reality is that we can do better to speed things up. But please be patient. We are working on speeding things up. So it's not to say we don't want people to come in. We actually do. But the process can be a little slow while we take our checks and balances, etc. Please be patient. Secondly, in terms of acquiring passports, and it's like every country, UK, if you want to assume UK nationality, considering as an African, British, a Caribbean, any form of African, I consider every Black individual across the world as African in the first instance. But due to whatever reason, people have had to assume a certain nationality. So if you hold a British passport, you are effectively a British citizen. And when you say, well, I want to be the citizen of another nation, then there are processes you want to follow. The reverse is true for if someone wanted to be a citizen of Great Britain. You have to make your application. They have to check your background to ensure that you fulfill certain criteria. And then you have to go and book and swear an oath of allegiance to the Queen. And then after a certain period, you realize whether you've been approved or not. And then you assume your citizenship when you are approved. The same applies to Ghana. Unfortunately, much as we would like to say, welcome home, here is a Ghanaian passport, it cannot work like that because it's for your own protection as well. What will happen is there will be elements who will take advantage, infiltrate the system, and create chaos. Because as much as we'd like to have a utopia outlook on things, we are not perfect as people. We have our flaws and we have our shortcomings. And in order to protect all of us and make sure we create the kind of community we want to see, these checks and balances have to exist. Do you understand where I'm coming from? So
you understand. I need you to say.
If you want a passport, can I just say very, very quickly?
Of course.
If you want to apply for a passport, the Ghana High Commission in the UK has a visa and passport section, and it's based at number 104 Highgate Hill, N6 5HE. You may ring them if you have a pen and paper handy. You may ring them on 0208 342 7561. And they're open between 10 a.m. and 5 p.m. Now, there is another application-specific telephone number also, and it's 0203 302 2288. Okay. You can also go online and to the Ghana High Commission website and fill in the form to start the process of applying for citizenship. And they'll be able to take you through it. I would say have a conversation with someone at the High Commission in the first instance to understand what the process involves. And then, go online, fill in the forms, and then start the process. You can acquire Ghanaian citizenship, as I say, but Ghana reserves the right to carry out its own checks and balances. Otherwise, we do everybody a disservice, by not carrying out the right checks.
Completely understand. It's easy to hear you say this. Now, I know that we have a colleague of mine, a Ghanaian colleague of mine, Councillor Jason Uchair. I wonder if you could still hear us, Jason.
Yes, I can hear you.
Good morning.
Following a similar vein to Na Tsotsoo, my surname is Otri.
Otri.
Well, tell me the meaning, please. Don't you laugh together. Just tell us the meaning.
No. I was just correcting on the record. I think you called me Ochair.
I
was just saying it's Otri.
Please, you have a question, Jason. I'll be interested to hear your views, what you've heard so far.
Yeah, no, thank you so much. It's been great. It's been great hearing from you and speaking with such wisdom. and sharing such great insight. Actually, funnily enough, now I first met you. You may not ever remember this, but I was very young at the Goober Awards, where I was given an award there almost 10 years ago. But I remember you. I remember you very well. No, just to ask you a question on Africa in Africans in diaspora, and specifically things around the homecoming. Now we know that there's been a real push from the Ghanaian government to draw more tourists to Ghana, but more specifically on homecoming, ensuring that Ghanaians in diaspora are given the opportunity and excitement to come to Ghana to explore, the myriad of opportunities that exist there. But with that, what challenges do you kind of see that kind of brings? Because I mean, from experience and talking to friends, etc., there's been some unintended consequences as a result, right? In that loads of people are going to Accra, Ghana, exploring it, which is great. But in doing so, have kind of some people have almost made it the Ibiza of Africa. And so how do we kind of overcome some of those challenges whilst acknowledging, of course, the push from the government to ensure that Ghanaians and Africans are able to better experience Ghana, but not to the detriment of losing I guess the richness of its culture when we do visit, when people do visit, and ensuring it isn't too westernized.
That's right. Thank you for that, Jason. I have always advocated that I was very much involved, by the way, in the Year of Return, as well as in the Homecoming Summits from 2017. I was actually head of logistics for both. And so I was very much involved, and I was incredibly excited by the prospect. But yes, you're right. Nothing is ever perfect. It is both, planning, but in implementation. And it's during the implementation that you begin to see some of the challenges that maybe, although they have been thought of, we've not really put in the structures. So the first thing I would say is revisiting the structures and the types of planning that we do around inviting people. But one of the fundamental things that we feel is missing in this conversation is the education and the marketing. So humans are going to be humans. How anyone has been brought up, or the environment they grew up in, determines behavior going forward. And as much as we want to invite our brothers and sisters back home, our marketing needs to be robust enough to educate. So it's not enough saying, come home, come home, come home. But it's an understanding that they originally came from a very respectful culture, a culture that has certain values that we hold very dear and are still practiced even within the framework of a westernized global society. And so teaching people that, listen, you came from something. And when you go back, although we want you to bring the good things of the West into the culture, be mindful that the culture still has values. So the Ibiza mentality that you mentioned there, which when you see some of these young people go to Ibiza, some of the behavior is shocking to the sensibilities of the average Ghanaian. You must be mindful that you cannot bring it into the culture, because what will happen is our young people will begin to emulate it. And the very thing that is attracting you home, the idea of Ubuntu, you will have destroyed, because you've imported unsavory Western culture into the very system that you want to build. And we want to reverse that. That's number one, education. Marketing, PR is very important. But also, I would appeal to my brothers and sisters in the West. I had somewhat a Western education, and I'm very proud in some respects of that. But because of the nature of my upbringing and also my very traditional sense of being, I understand where I draw the line between Western culture and my culture.
Mm-hmm.
I pray and I appeal to my diaspora brothers and sisters. Please, please be mindful, like I said, that you came from something very special. Do not make the assumption, well, why would they tell me how to behave? I'm going to go there. It's my Africa, and I should not be told how to behave there. Please be mindful of when you're coming to set aside some of the not so favorable Western attitudes and come with a spirit of embracing what is a beautiful, sustainable way of being. One of the things that we've realized also is people concentrate in Accra because it's the capital. And of course, it has knock-on effects on the infrastructure, etc., etc. But what I have advocated, if my government will listen, is legislation that fruits industry rather than say, well, let's not make Accra the capital. Of course, if you take the capital elsewhere, the same problem will arise. So what you need to do is put in legislation that channels industry away from Accra. So make Accra the seat of government. Mm-hmm. All the ministries are there. However, in terms of industry, spread it out into the other parts. So when you're coming with your soap factory, here's land in Takoradi, here's land in Kumasi, here's land in Eastern region. We'll give you access, we'll speak to the traditional authority and the landowners there, take that to this place because there's a need for it. I want to produce shea butter. Well, let's give you somewhere in the north rather than set up we want land in Accra, So I think those are the two main things that we need to look at. And when we come to the local community, educating our local community as well, because the young people are watching too much YouTube, they're watching a lot of Western programming, and media has something to do with it. And what is happening is sometimes because they feel it's cool, it's marketed as cool, they are taking those on board and losing sight of their culture. So our youth are beginning to look down on their culture as something negative because it's being sold as something negative. I hope that answers your question.
Yes, it does. Very helpful. Thank you so much.
Can I say before you go, Jason, let's just say that so Jason is a councillor here in Southwark, okay, a young man to whom I'm extremely proud. He's currently a cabinet member here in Southwark, so he holds a very senior position in local politics.
And we know, and we're proud of him as well.
I just need to say that live here in front of you, because he's a genuine talent. He's an example of the many talents that will be elected as of May the 5th. So I'm immensely proud of him. I need to say that to you, Jason, and with Her Highness listening, I want to say I'm immensely proud of your achievements. Yeah?
Humbly received with thanks. Thank you.
Okay. And if I may say so, this is an example of what we have here in the London Borough of Southwark. I'm sure in other boroughs are wonderful, but I know here in Southwark, we have applicants of the highest order. I did want to say that to you. And thank you, Jason. I know you've got to go, but thank you for taking the time to listen and participate today. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Keep in touch with us because the conversation has to go on, and I think we all have a duty to come together and carry on the conversation and educate in the community.
Absolutely, and thank you so much for being such a beacon of light for the Ghanaian community.
There you go.
You're welcome.
Oh my gosh, it's powerful. And if I may go on to that issue of holidays, and it is interesting that having spoken to quite a number of people who've been locked down for 2 years and now are burning to go on holiday. Okay, if they are considering going on holiday, where would you recommend that new visitors to the country should visit in Ghana, where would you recommend my youngsters?
So we have so many. In fact, I counted over 40 destinations and tourist places. Ghana happens to be one of those gems in Africa that is very little explored. And you'd be surprised some of the things that are, I don't even think Ghanaians themselves appreciate the land that we live on. But yes, we have some amazing places that you can go to. So the first that comes to mind would be looking at places like Eburi Gardens. Let me start from Accra. We are trying to encourage people to go into the hinterland and explore Ghana. But if you land in the capital, the first thing you see is a beautiful airport. One of the best in Africa, I have to say, and something we're all very proud of. But then going through the affluent parts of Ghana, you want to explore places like the Kwame Nkrumah Memorial. You want to go and look at the Independence Square, where independence was declared in 1957. And then you want to go to the W.E.B. Du Bois Center. These are all centers. And then you have National Theatre. We have the Trade Fair Center. These are all places that you can go and explore. And of course, we have what we call the Art Center, where you go and buy your artifacts and your beautiful carvings and etc. This is Accra. You can explore the forts. Jamestown, where my jurisdiction is historically has a fort there, which is under renovation at the moment, or is due to be renovated. But you can go into the community and understand some of the historical culture there. We have every year.
We may have a call here. Let's take this call very quickly. Let's hope we get that person in. Good morning, caller. Can you hear us all right?
Yes, I can hear you.
Oh, good morning. Is this Councillor Evelyn Koto?
Yes, it is.
Oh, good morning to you, and thank you for calling the show. And Her Highness, yet another councillor of Ghanaian heritage. There you are. Oh, I'm blessed today.
Yes, the brains and brawn of Ghana is coming through, and I can't be prouder.
Hello?
Yes, well, we can hear you well, Evelyn. Do you have a question for my guests?
Well, first of all, I'd just like to say, Obahima Akwaba.
Yeah, Oba.
To me today, it has been a learning experience. Honestly, I've learned so much from you. Your knowledge of history, tradition is second to none. So thank you so much for gracing us with your presence today. I think I want to make a comment about some of the things she mentioned, especially when she talks about women in our tradition.
Yeah.
And it's interesting because a lot of people, when they think about African tradition, you won't know, it's always kind of synonymized with misogyny, in the fact that it's only men that lead the pack, as it were. But in Ghana, the matriarchal tradition is very, very strong.
Yes.
Now, my husband is Ashanti, and it was interesting. He unfortunately lost his mom recently, so we traveled back home. And I was so marveled to see how the women in that culture basically, took reins on things. When the inheritance are divided up, it's actually given to the women.
Yes.
Are the one who hold it. The women are the one who either will distribute. The women are the one who will basically make the direction for the family. And I think for me, when I heard you speak about that, again, that empowered me even further, because I'm a Wakim, Eastern region of Ghana. We live in the mountains, and I've grown up to be empowered by my father in everything I do. And so that tradition and that strength you exhibited today in your speech, everything you said, again, emboldened me today. So I just want to say a big thank you. And it's really important as Africans, all of us are Africans, to have this in our mind that when we are raising up our children, our women are not subservient. Our women should be empowered.
Absolutely.
Because our women are the ones who go out. When you look at our tradition, go out and fight.
Absolutely. Yes.
Who are out there? You know, we talk about Asante. She was the one leading the pack to fight.
Yeah.
Indeed.
So, you know, the kind of current view of Africa is, you know, sometimes, a lot of the time, very wrong. So I just want to say thank you for bringing that out in your speech today. I don't have a question, but I just want to say huge thank you for everything you said today.
You're welcome. It's important that we make the distinction, and also it's important that we educate, because there is a lot of miseducation when people see so many negative images of Africa and Africans on the media, the Western, especially the Western media, and there is an agenda there. But I'm pleased to be one of the voices that can educate and understands the concept within which that education should lie. So thank you.
And even before you go, I do want to put this question to you, and then I'm sure when others will want to respond. Okay, have you felt here in politics in the UK that your role as a woman has been an advantage or disadvantage? Do you believe?
That's a very good question, because I'm speaking not just as a woman, but as a Black woman.
Indeed.
So I think my experience will be totally different. I think women in general in politics recently have been encouraged. You know, we have the kind of in various roles of position, this kind of attempt to get 50% of women, in parliament, etc. In local policies, to get more women in positions. So that is great. But I think, you know, there's an intersectionality aspect here. I mean, as a Black woman, for a while, I don't think this was afforded to me, and I don't think I felt the benefits of this. But also things are improving, more definitely. But I think for me, it was always not to look at the disadvantage of my situation, but push, you know, aim to push against it. So I never really look at what I can't do, what the obstacles are, but exactly how do I beat that obstacle? How do I go against it? How do I beat against the obstacle?
Absolutely. And there you have it, Quinal, that a determined Ghanaian woman. Okay.
We're proud of her, and more Greece. We need more Yasantuas across the world. We need the women to step up, and I think that throughout history we have realized, I said earlier, that when you see the men in the lead position, but it's the women who are actually steering the ship and actually moving the agenda, and we want to see more of that. And when sometimes the strength of the men fail, you see the women step up and they begin to lead. So more Greece. I'm very proud again to be a Ghanaian, but also to know that we have Ghanaians, you know, really setting the pace across the globe, and especially in Britain.
Brilliant. Thank you. Councillor Evelyn Koto, thank you so much for your call this morning. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Oh, blessing. My blessings to you. Oh,
Hi.
now, Brina, we're going to just go back, if I may, and we've only got a few minutes, just focus on tourism and going as a place of leisure. And I note your response to Councillor Oche. I'll pronounce his name. Oche. Thank you. Young man, he's allowed me to say not pronounce his name correctly for many years, so I'm pleased for the correction. Oche. So obviously, we want to encourage, particularly Africans here, particularly those of diasporans like myself, to see Ghana as a holiday destination place. You started to plot out a number of interesting locations. We didn't actually made another minute or so, outline other places that audience members might want to visit.
So one of the places that I would encourage strongly is to go to Cape Coast. And in Cape Coast, not only do you have Elmina Castle,
yes,
you need, anyone coming from the diaspora needs to go to Elmina. Because it tells a certain story, and you get the narrative in the way it should be told, not what has been propagated out there. And then we have places like the Kakum National Park. Actually, it's one of the most visited attractions in Ghana. if you visit Kakum and you're able to do what we the walk of fear, I mean, I wouldn't spoil it too much, but it's a gem. You can go to Kakum. You can also go to, and that's talking about Buzwa Beach is one of those places as well. We have the Mole National Park in the northern region of Ghana. When you go there, you meet different animals that you wouldn't normally see, and they're not in a zoo. Within their natural habitat. So it would be good to visit. You have places in the eastern region. Councillor mentioned, I believe when she says eastern region, we're talking about Akosombo, where the dam is. But you also have the gorge, which is there. You have a place like Royal Senchi, which is a resort. You need to go to this place to understand what I'm talking about. You go to Tamale, and you have places. Mole actually is in the north and is based in Tamale. So you have the Larimbaga Mosque. Again, this is a mosque that has historical significance, and they will tell you the history and how it came to be. You have Lake Busumchi, which is a man-made lake. It is said it was created when a meteorite fell onto that location many years ago and created this lake. So it's there for you to go and see. And you have, we have the Boti Falls, for instance. Now, people talk about Victoria Falls. We have our own Victoria Falls in Ghana. So it'll be good to go and visit. I mean, these are just a few places.
Thank you.
Can visit, and then you go to Ashanti region. You can go to Amenshia and look at the rich culture that surrounds the King's Palace, etc. Experience, obviously, the dance. Come to Ghana in August and experience the Homowo Festival, among other things. It's a sight to behold.
I'd like to be there this year, and you never know, I might have to get it this year. If not this year, next year. Ghana. And what you described is such a rich word picture. I have clear visions in my mind of what to expect. And whilst you're speaking, I've just been reviewing this on the internet. And locations are beautiful scenery. And if I may just say in closing, that I'm just conscious of your time, that what you provide is a really useful overview of the history of the people of Ghana, the royalty, the economics, and of course their leisure and holiday opportunities. But if there's something that is quite striking about Ghanaians, when they say so, and we've had two Ghanaian leaders speak to us today, it's your openness and honesty, integrity. And I'm going to use your words again. Integrity, authenticity, humility, and of course, wisdom. Okay, my first son is named Nkrumah for that reason.
Wonderful.
It's an outstanding experience. I know those who are listening to us via YouTube or Facebook, I know you can't see Her Majesty at the moment, but I'm going to invite you again.
They will see me.
I will make sure of that, and I'll give you ample notice. I do apologize. I'll give you ample notice. We want to promote Ghana as a destination place, both for economics and prosperity and for leisure and happiness. Ghana is absolutely the place to go. Okay, and I want to applaud Ghana to all those who are listening, and I want to thank you. You have been an outstanding guest to us today. You've been patient with us, even with my mispronunciations. And but practice will make perfect. We will join the family again. My own family has been divorced from the motherland for far too many generations. But I'm proud that my eldest brother is married to, in this case, to a Nigerian woman. And as part of the coming back, what we need to encourage is the rest of the family to visit Nigeria, to visit Ghana here, so that we can finally reconnect, and no longer we have a so-called black child who's lost their identity. Okay, if they were able to visit their homeland again and be re-energized, re-assimilated back into our culture and tradition. Never again should such word be uttered. But what you are very much in the vanguard, if I may use that term, in ensuring that we identify Ghana as a destination place. I've looked at these stats in terms of crime, and I see crime has been comparatively, compared to Britain,
Yes.
crime in Ghana is, it's minuscule compared to, I'm in London, and London is clearly far more dangerous than most places in Ghana. That's for sure. That's for sure. So I've got no hesitation in encouraging listeners to see Ghana as a destination. And I want to thank you, Her Majesty, for your presence here today and your words of wisdom that you've shared. Thank you.
You're most welcome, and thank you for having me on your show. I want to thank your listeners for engaging and for receiving the information, the teaching, and the education that I have to impart. Next time, if I do get invited, it would be great to talk about our names, because it's one of the things that I'm passionate about, because you mentioned naming your child Nkrumah, the fact that our names happen to be our postcode, and how you identify people to their origins based on name only. And I think that's a very powerful thing in the homecoming agenda. So it will be good to delve a little bit more into that at some point, time permitting.
I will most certainly arrange it, and I most certainly, and I promise, give you ample notice.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for your presence today, and may you continue your outstanding work on behalf of all of us, not just Ghanaians, I know, on behalf of all of us, that all of our people will be raised through your efforts and your achievements. Thank you, Her Majesty. Thank you so much. Good day to you. Good day.
You too, and you to you. Bye-bye.
Well, I can only say, listeners, another example of our heritage. Heritage which is very rarely displayed on British TV in this manner. But if we want changes, we have to be the change makers. Okay, we cannot be hesitant. We cannot stand by on the sidelines. We cannot whisper we want change. We have to be proud, confident, and explain why change is absolutely necessary. And if we are to do this, we must do this not as individuals. We must do this as a group of peoples working together. Okay, that's the only way we change that is lasting occurs. Working together, overcoming the ego, overcoming the hesitation, and becoming the solutions finder. Okay, I will be followed by this show by the solutions finder, Sister Shanice. I'm sure she'll have topics that will be intellectually and spiritually enlightening. Okay, but what I want to say is that it's been a great pleasure to do these shows, and being an elected official elsewhere means that just doing the shows sometimes are challenging, but I continue to do this because we meet outstanding people as we have today. Okay, and I just want to say to you all that if you're in any way encouraged now and you want to consider a place to go on holiday, I commend Ghana to you. I commend Ghana to you. When compared to other places in the world, even England or even London, Ghana is relatively peaceful, but rich culture and history, a legacy from which we can take great comfort and confidence from. Okay? Visit Ghana. Okay? Invest in Ghana. Okay? Consider Ghana as a destination place. But I also want to make sure it's understood that I want to do shows across all the countries from Africa and the Caribbean. Okay, so we can begin to address then some negative press that is often exposed to us. Yeah? We can change it. We have no choice but to change those circumstances. And those who do it not to encourage, but to discourage. But actually, to Britain's disadvantage. After all, if you can stimulate trade between Britain and Ghana in Britain, it creates wealth, creates prosperity for both countries. That's genuine trade. Yeah? You help the country to be able to buy your goods and services and vice versa. That's just, if I may say so, common sense. I understand that's part of the reason why many British people wanted to leave the EU, so you'd be open to trade with the rest of the world. There's no doubt that Ghana is an ideal place to trade. Okay? And if you're Ghanaian or not, it doesn't matter. Go visit the country. Yeah? See the opportunities. Okay? And you can trade between Ghana and Britain and Ghana. And both countries will prosper through that trade. Unequal trade, as you know, history has taught us many a time, might benefit a country, maybe Britain, for a short period, but not in the long term. It's only where countries are buying not only the raw materials, you're selling the raw materials, but acquiring the technologies and vice versa. That genuine trade, meaningful trade, real trade that is really not in the tens of thousands, but in the hundreds of millions and the billions are occurring. Be good for Britain and be good for Nigeria, forgive me, good for Ghana and the rest of Africa, including Nigeria, which I hope to focus on next week. Okay. So that's my show today. I feel truly encouraged by the presence of Her Majesty. It is really interesting to listen to her speak with such confidence, forthrightness, and exact confidence and forthrightness, which is a feature of our community. Because those of you who are shy, reserved, stay below the line and not bring attention to yourself, you need to stop that. You need to be seen. You need to advocate. You need to express your real and inner feelings. You need to express the intellect that is most certainly we are imbued with in abundance. I wish to encourage you all to see these programs as empowerment, confidence building programs. Okay? No longer should you be sitting by the sidelines and watching others. You must participate in all spheres here in this country. We must encourage our children to become well educated. Okay? Go through school, get good qualifications, go to college or university, gain those firsts, those seconds, gain those doctorates, gain those PhDs, gain those professional qualifications, and fully participate in life in Britain and indeed in Africa, if not in Ghana. And therefore, these programs would have served their purpose. The effort I've expended would have been worthwhile. Would have been worthwhile. It's up to you. I'll start off with the health messages for deliberate reasons. If you don't take care of your health, you can't take care of your wealth. Okay? I hope that makes sense to you. So I'll just end with those words of Queen Na Tsotsoo Soyoo. Key words that determine her royalty. Courage, integrity, authenticity, humility, and wisdom. Powerful words. Take those words away with you today and be strong. Thank you. I'm out of here. Thank you. Hand over to Lady, or indeed Empress Shanice. Thank you so much. Take care, everybody. Take care.